And
Yes,
Gary
I'm
will
just
be
here to
brief.
introduce the subject, Your Honor.
Okay.
Jen's been working hard. As you know, you've all been through the strategic planning process with us. As I mentioned very quickly, and she will reiterate, it was pretty systematic. It was a long process, and we promised to come back and inform you where we were with those things. As you'll see from Jen's presentation, we've had very good success in a lot of areas. Some areas are lagging behind the schedules that we'd originally moved forward. Reasons for that are the same that those occur in folks' lives, and that is you have issues come forward that take time. We have limited staff resources, so on and so forth. So in some of these, you'll see revised timelines and explanations for why they haven't moved forward. So just wanted to give you a report. We're about ready to enter a new calendar year. We just started a new fiscal year, so we wanted to give you an update as to where we are. So with that, Jen's done a lot of work on this. She is kind of shepherding the process along, and I think you'll find what she has to say interesting.
Hi, Jen.
Good evening. Get this turned on.
Whoops. There we go.
Perfect. So the overview Gary just provided with the Piper Jaffray discussion leads really well into this as we talk about our major challenge areas, how that a lot of those issues are the items that we'll be talking about in the potential bond initiative. And so we'll go through each of those, and I will start with a little bit of a history on the strategic planning process, just because it has been a bit. We wrapped the final draft of our strategic plan in November of 2015. That process began by going back to our mission, making sure it was the statement that we wanted it to be, and it in fact does meet our needs, and this is still our goal and meets the desirability of what we're looking to do as a city. The values came together through the strategic planning process and really speak to collaboration and partnership, integrity, honesty, providing service to our citizens, and those different types of things. So they're echoed quite a bit throughout the goals and objectives, and just the operational overviews as well. That's the piece where it talks about what we do day in and day out. So those two items were a couple of the big ones right off the bat, and thankfully the mission was right where we needed it to be, and we were able to move forward from there. So I'll talk about some of the driving forces and trends, priorities, things like that we dealt with as we put together the strategic plan. I'll back up just a second as well. When we put the plan together, we started with our teams from each department or division, and it included folks from all levels of the organization, so from the bottom to the top and everywhere in between, because we were really looking for that professional outlook for 20, 30 years, as our consultant kept saying, what's on the horizon out there? What do you see coming at us? So we brought together a little bit of everybody to get through that plan. That led us to some of the driving forces and trends, and the three biggies that we saw as categories were the tax implications, and that included things like we talked about resources not keeping pace with service demands or infrastructure demands that we have. Also, enrollment and unemployment in our community were two of the things that we knew were driving forces for us that we needed to keep in mind. Next came a discussion of desired legacies. What did we as council and staff want to leave behind from our perspectives? And the consensus really came together around some of these items listed here, and really talks about, as I mentioned with that value statement, vitality, collaboration, harmony, professionalism, and continuous progress as we continue to plan for the future. We also found there was a profound commitment to conservative values, prudent planning, careful execution, which is really, I think, related throughout this entire process, even as we led up to the strategic planning process in particular, as I'll speak to about our other planning efforts in a moment. And then the vision of the city to maintain its history and the commitments that we have in our tradition, those kinds of things that make it the place that it is, the successful place that we love, and to maintain that as we move forward. And then just digging a little bit deeper, we're looking at the priorities, the things we wanted to make sure we were paying attention to and keeping an eye on. Again, you'll see these throughout our MCAs. They're not surprising when we look at the issues that we've been identifying and dealing with when it comes to our planning. Noted here, economic development, facilities, infrastructure, revenue resources, equipment, programming, planning, and customer service. Those are the big priorities that you'll see in every single one of our issues that are in that plan. As we talked about preparing, these are just, along the bottom are just some samples of the plans that are listed here. We've based our strategic plan on facts and data, previous planning processes, so that we can be confident in the assumptions we're making when it comes to issues and how we can plan on tackling those issues as well. We've got, since then, we've had the Farmers Market Economic Impact Study, which was completed, which gives us more information. We've also had our long-range financial plan that the Finance Department is working on is coming along. And then additionally, the Farmers Market Commission is working on a strategic plan as well that will help to inform some of the issues that the city sees, and then to continue to maintain the vitality of our market as well. So we have quite the library of plans to work from, which is nice. So specifically for this planning process, if you remember, I'll just give a quick overview of the different documents we have in place. We began with our operational overview, which is a catalog of the day-to-day activities that just maintain what we're doing as it is right now. That led to the overall City of Moscow strategic plan, which is a compilation of all the departments and divisions' plans, which is a pretty hefty document. That document was then reviewed by council, and that's when we determined our major challenge areas, and that was in the spring of 2015 that we talked about that. From those major challenge areas, or pardon me, from those issues, we determined our major challenge areas, and we had external and internal, and then we moved into breaking those down into three tiers for each. Leading from that, we said, okay, next steps is we're going to work on variance reporting, which is tonight is the first iteration of that process. Currently, we're looking at a quarterly report system. 3 of those 4 quarters would focus on the actions and strategies. Those are those tasks that we said we would take on within the year. And then an annual report that rolls all of that up into how it's affected the goals and objectives and how we've actually started to make some progress towards the issues. So this is our November quarterly actions and strategies report. As I just discussed, these are those external MCAs. We've got Tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 are the highest importance, and those are the ones we'll focus on this evening for review. I've also included, we'll go through the internal ones here in a moment, but I've also included any goals that were remaining from the previous year. As you may remember, we adjusted from a goal-setting process to the strategic planning process, and so we'll update on that last piece after we get through the external and internal MCAs here. I'll also highlight there are a few items that came into discussion with the potential GO bond process. I'll highlight those few extra items as well, so you have an idea where we're at with those. So deteriorating pavement conditions, as we've already discussed this evening, infrastructure needs in the community are deteriorating at a rate that we're not able to maintain and repair. The issue specifically talks about current funding levels, the amount of funding needed to maintain the roadways that we have in place, the issues that they affect to public perception and public safety, and then also as they play into economic development efforts as well, as we look at image building, tourism, job growth, and those types of things. Work to date on this particular issue is consisted of researching and implementing a pavement management software system. That's Cartograph, I think, if I'm saying that right, Les. They've done quite a bit of work on that. Some of the work that's been in progress is then to refine the treatment parameters, looking at different treatment plans and how that could be implemented in the next couple of years. One thing to note on public works actions and strategies, we mentioned that our actions and strategies are typically a year long. Because of some of public works projects, they expand beyond a year in many instances. So you'll see some different years here for them. And then pending is to start implementation of the program that's defined and researched, and then, of course, look at the results of that and how that works, and then conduct a study on the benefits. We make sure that the program's working, it's doing what we want to do, and that's the direction we want to continue. This is an item that I was happy to work on this last year. Declining enrollment at the University of Idaho negatively impacts Moscow. We talk quite a bit how, as Councilmember Steve just mentioned, having that property here is quite a benefit for us. But looking as the U of I as Moscow's primary economic engine, looking at the different drivers in the economy that the U of I brings to us, and knowing that as enrollment increases, so does the benefits to Moscow. So some of the things we did this year were, I'm going to go start from the bottom and work up. We developed a communication and collaboration strategy, and we refer to that now as the CUSP Branding Project. And that's a community-university strategic partnership that wrapped up just this last August, and we were able to roll that out. In the bottom right corner on the slide here, that's one of the ads that we're using for the City of Moscow with that branding message, and that's in the Visitor's Guide for the Chamber that will be coming out at the end of November, I believe. So it's giving us some new tools to work on more consistently and creatively representing Moscow, not just as a city, but as a community, but also maintaining our own identity in there. So that's exciting. Also in the last year, the Partnership for Economic Prosperity organization has been formed, and with the PEP organization coming on board, we see some opportunities for partnerships on some of our actions and strategies that will help us meet these goals and objectives. This item here is to look at some data and the economic impact of the U of I on the local economy, so we can start analyzing and determining how we can best support them. Also with PEP will be a big part in the CUSP branding initiatives, I believe, as we move forward. So we've got some opportunities coming there, and I believe end of November, the executive director will be joining the organization. So that will be great. As Gary mentioned, we have had over the last year some things come up and change a little bit in reference to the inadequate law enforcement radio infrastructure. Just in the past year, we've had Chief Fry join us as chief with David Duke's retirement, and then we also had a captain hiring process. So with those things, they've done a bit of work on that, but some of these things have been rescheduled. Particularly, we're looking at also alternative repeater options for all public safety radios, not necessarily just law enforcement. And it's discussions of different technical aspects, such as number of channels required, repeater options, and those types of things. So those discussions are moving forward, but some of these items have been delayed a bit over the past year. So. A deteriorating waste collection system. This issue starts by explaining that 60% of the city's 84 miles of sanitary sewer mains are clay or concrete pipes, which require enhanced maintenance, subject to collapse, inflow, and infiltration. All sorts of exciting things there. So just knowing that we have a structure that is starting to deteriorate and that we need to pay proper attention to that. Public Works has done a lot of work in looking at the prioritization, looking at replacement factors, taking inventory of the mains that we have in place, which has all been completed. And then they'll start to identify different estimates and options for addressing those as they move forward, coordinating with the Water and Streets Division. And then I think the pending is for next year in April, actually, and we're still on track for that, looking at different project designs on how we'll attack these 60% of mains that are deteriorating. So looking also, I believe, the goal there is the 200,000 feet of antiquated sewer main by 2055. So that's our target.
Well,
for
I'll be an old guy if I'm still alive. But
a little bit at a time, right? A little bit at a time. Insufficient revenues jeopardizing service levels. This, again, Gary spoke to this a bit with his discussion of the Piper Jaffray contract a moment ago. This is, again, looking at the level of service that we're trying to provide and looking at the revenues that we have available to provide that service. We've done quite a few things. Really, the goal or the actions and strategies have been directed at improving relationships with our legislators, providing better information, becoming a better resource when they're talking about such things as local option tax or URA issues as they go to the state legislature. This year we've done quite a bit. We're looking at, as Gary mentioned, we've got a technical advisory team to discuss the bond presentation and education process, which will be considerable given the different projects that we have that could potentially be directed for us to pursue. We have, for our legislators, we've hosted some town hall meetings at City Hall. And after the November 8 election, we look forward to hosting our state elected officials to get together with them before they head down to Boise to start that relationship building process. Association of Idaho Cities is a great organization that we take advantage of their events as well in June and in January. And in the end of January, we'll be joining them for the Day at the Legislature again. And then we've also believe Gary's attending the AIC Legislative Summit, and then we've got different staff members that are on technical advisory teams for the AIC as well. And then coming up just this next Sunday, we have the Northern Idaho Legislative Tour, which our Chamber of Commerces are putting together for us. And we're also looking at participating in Chamber Legislative Committee, and then Chamber Days at the Legislature, I think, is passed already. That's one we...
Coming up in January.
Coming up, okay, thank you. I didn't put a date on that one. I couldn't remember. So, several activities coming up in the next few months, especially as the legislative session kicks into gear. Let's see. Looking at our declining employment base, this goes back to some of those priorities and trends that we are noticing and want to be mindful of. Moscow's economy, as outlined in the issue, has been slowly declining for the past decade, causing an erosion of employment numbers since 2003, and then is further impacted by the 2007 Great Recession. So those are some of the things we're feeling when it comes to this issue. With the development of PEP, that Palouse Economic Partnership, we look forward to the different opportunities we'll have with them to discuss the issue, look at different ways we can address that as we move forward. And the bulk of the work in this specific issue has been addressed through building the PEP partnership and organization in the past year. So